Like most people, I have a love-hate relationship with Souls games. I'm definitely not a fan of Dark Souls 1. I think it's the weakest of the lot. I think Dark Souls 2 is an improvement on the first, but it's just alright. Still better than 1 though. On the other hand, Dark Souls 3 is amazing. The combat is a big step up from Dark Souls 2, even though in that game we still get ambushed by a shit ton of enemies just like its predecessor, but you can run away, which is not the case in Dark Souls 2, which is why people complain so much about it. As far as Dark Souls 3 is concerned, I call it an Elden Ring prototype. I would highly recommend Dark Souls 3 for anyone who wants to try Souls games, or if you're just a fan of Elden Ring. It's really that good. The first 2 can be skipped anyways, nothing of worth as far as I'm concerned. Unless you want to see the history, in which case you should start with Demon Souls. That is where everything begins. To be clear, I do love FromSoft games. I did all the achievements in Elden Ring and Sekiro. I just replayed them all from Demon Souls to Dark Souls 3. I don't have Bloodborne or PS4, so gonna have to find another way to do that. It's just that Dark Souls 1 is my least favorite and 2 is just slightly above it, right? In terms of how much I love Dark Souls 3, I'd say it's on par with Demon Souls. Yeah, Demon Souls is old and the gameplay doesn't compare, but that's the first FromSoft game I played and I loved it so much it's not even funny. I did nearly every style of playthrough possible with it. I spent hours and hours playing with my friend back in the day on the PlayStation 3. That game made me fall in love with the Souls genre. But back to the subject at hand, Dark Souls 3. The world looks much better than both previous games, and it feels like a real continuation of the Souls series. I'm not sure if Dark Souls 2 just happened when the world was recovering, or had recovered. That's why it's so different. And then you have Dark Souls 3, and that's when the world's about to crumble or something. I don't know the lore exactly on that. I just know the last boss is every incarnation of the Lord of Cinders, which means we beat the protagonist from Dark Souls 1. I used Ultra Great Swords for the playthrough, which is my favorite type of weapons. I started with Zweihander, then Lothric Knight Great Sword, and finally settled on Fume Knight Great Sword. No magic. I wanted to use the Twin Great Swords from the last night in the second DLC. I thought they would swing like Radahn's sword in Elden Ring. My disappointment was immeasurable when I saw the character only swing one at a time. Not gonna lie. Total bummer on that. Overall, the bosses were fun to fight. Some of my favorites are classics like Slave Knight Gal, Nameless King, and Pontiff Sullivan. Human enemies are where FromSoft games shine. I hate animals and big bosses, especially that stupid dragon. I was lucky to have my chat helping me to find some paths and secrets. I wasn't spoiled too much for the most part, so that was pretty cool. And like I said, they helped me a lot because that would have been way longer of a playthrough. It took about 20 hours. That was fine. The game is a bit shorter than I thought, but like I said, I had help. So the DLCs were nice to stretch the playtime, which is also a bit of a shame because after the DLC boss fights and everything, I went into the final boss expecting an epic showdown. That Soul of Cinder guy is a real pushover. He did some damage. I wasn't expecting the easiest fight in the game. Other than that, my complaints are simple. The aesthetic is gray as hell in the third installment. A bit of color would have been nice. The DLC areas were kind of bad too. Like I didn't like the painting well at all, especially. Terrible enemies, terrible world design. The Sister Friday fight was nice though. I really like that one. My favorite boss of the game, Slave Knight Gal, is in the second DLC. And the area is much better overall than the first DLC. That was an improvement. Except for the stupid angels, man. Fuck those guys. I hate them so much. Especially the second one. I might do a second playthrough of that game eventually. It's the only Dark Souls games I would, to be honest. I had a fun time, even though I bitch and complained the whole time. The other 2, like I said, nothing of worth missing there. So, we can skip those. But that's it for my thoughts on my first ever playthrough of Dark Souls 3. Did you love the third game in the series? Which boss is your favorite? Leave a comment below. But that's gonna be it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. I wish you a slime-tastic rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next one.